Named after the first Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Corlys Velaryon was born in 53 AC, descended from an ancient house of Old Valyria who settled on the Isle of Driftmark. When the Dragon Lords of House Targaryen left their homeland and took up residence on the nearby island of Dragonstone, the Velaryons became their allies and later their bannermen following the doom of Valyria. At the age of 6, Corlys Velaryon traveled to Pentos with his uncle and immediately took to the life of a sailor, enthusiastically helping the crew with their labors, as well as learning to steer and navigate. By the age of 16, he captained his first vessel, sailing the Cod Queen from Driftmark to Dragonstone, and as he got older, led larger ships on longer journeys. Traveling aboard the Summer Maid, he visited Volantis and the Summer Isles, after which he boarded the Ice Wolf and went north to the Shivering Sea, exploring Hardhome, Lorath, and Ibn. Though he was hoping to find a northern route to the Sunset Sea, he eventually turned back due to icebergs and extreme cold. However, his most famous voyages were aboard the Sea Snake, where he earned his nickname, as it was on this ship he made his fortune. Visiting the wealthy city of Karth, he became involved in Far Eastern trade, even braving the dangers of the Jade Sea to visit Yi Ti, Leng, and Ashai, trading in spices, silks, and other exotic goods. Through these adventures, he was able to amass a great fortune, making House Velaryon the richest family in Westeros, surpassing even the Lannisters and Hightowers. On his third voyage aboard the Sea Snake, he went north into the Shivering Sea once more, becoming the first Westerosi to visit the secret city of Nefer and navigate the Thousand Islands. Then during his final voyage, Corlys Velaryon loaded his fleet with gold and traveled to Karth, where he bought 20 additional ships to trade in massive quantities of Eastern goods. Though not all these vessels survived the journey home, many did, ensuring the future prosperity of his family. After the death of his grandfather, Corlys became Lord of Driftmark and was married to Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, daughter of Prince Aemon, heir to the king. As lord of his house, he used his great wealth to build the fortress of High Tide to replace Castle Driftmark, and there hid much of his treasure. Serving as master of ships for King Jaehaerys, Corlys tripled the size of the royal fleet and continued to build ships even after leaving the position. As a result of his passion for crafting new vessels, the village of Hull formed near High Tide, while Spicetown arose to attract traders from the east. After the death of Prince Aemon, Rhaenys was passed over, despite being his only child, in favor of the male claimant, Prince Baelon, third-born son of the king. In 101 AC, following the death of Baelon, a great council was called to decide the issue of succession, with Rhaenys as well as her children by Corlys, Laena and Laenor as possible candidates. And while their son managed to gain a fair amount of support, the council ultimately chose to set a precedent that the throne could not go to a woman or to any children of her line. And so Viserys, son of Baelon the fourth-born, was chosen over Laenor, grandson of Aemon the second-born. Some have come to suggest that Corlys was so determined to see her or their son crowned, he started raising a fleet for war, but the council's decision was confirmed by the king, and so Rhaenys earned the nickname, the Queen Who Never Was. Corlys then focused on his children, attempting to arrange strategic marriages that would place their family nearer to the throne. In 105 AC, the now King Viserys I passed over Laena Velaryon to marry Lady Alicent Hightower, who became Queen of Westeros. Outraged by this insult, Corlys allied himself with Viserys' younger brother, Daemon Targaryen, and together they raised a mighty army and went about pursuing their own desires, without regard for the king. Together, they invaded the Stepstones, defeating the Triarchy of Essos, who'd committed various transgressions against House Velaryon. After conquering all but 2 of the islands, Corlys crowned Daemon Targaryen king of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea. In 114 AC, relations with Viserys improved when Laenor was married to Princess Rhaenyra, firstborn daughter of the king and heir to the Iron Throne. Despite being a woman, Viserys was adamant that Rhaenyra be his heir, and so the Velaryons were at last positioned to take the Iron Throne. Together, the couple had 3 sons, Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey, yet controversy surrounded the family, as many believed Laenor was interested in men and having a secret relationship with Sir Qarl Corey, meaning that his 3 sons were in fact fathered by another who many suspected was Sir Harwin Strong. In 120 AC, a fire in Harrenhal killed Sir Harwin, with some suggesting that Corlys may have been involved, seeking retribution against the man who dishonored his son. Corlys' other child, Laena, married his old friend Prince Daemon, and the couple had 2 children in Baela and Rhaena Targaryen. Unfortunately, both of Corlys' children would suffer tragic ends, with Laena dying from childbirth and Laenor killed in a fight with Sir Carl Corey. Their widows, Rhaena and Daemon Targaryen, then married each other soon afterwards. In 126 AC, as Corlys was struck with illness, the issue of the inheritance of Driftmark arose, and was contested by Rhaenyra's second son Lucerys, and his eldest nephew Vaemond Velaryon. Rhaenyra's firstborn son, Jacaerys, was already set to inherit the Iron Throne after his mother, and so she wanted her second child to have a worthy inheritance as well. And while Vaemond Velaryon may have had a fair claim, he became overly aggressive and declared that the children of Rhaenyra could not inherit because they were born of Harwin Strong and not Laenor Velaryon. This violated a proclamation made by the king, which forbade such rumors, and so Prince Daemon killed Vaemond, while the man's wife and children had their tongues removed by order of the king. Corlys eventually recovered from his illness just in time to face the Dance of the Dragons civil war, in which the kingdom fractured following the death of the king. The Black faction supported Rhaenyra as heir, while the Greens supported Aegon II, firstborn son of the king, but second-born child overall. House Velaryon threw their support behind Rhaenyra and used their fleet to blockade Blackwater Bay in order to cut off supply routes to the capital. However, the blockade fell following their defeat in the Battle of the Gullet after the Greens convinced the Triarchy to send a fleet and seek revenge against House Velaryon for the War of the Stepstones. After the loss, enemy forces burned High Tide, destroying much of the remaining treasure Corlys had accumulated over the years. Although the Blacks were making progress, even taking King's Landing, the death of Princess Rhaenys during a dragon battle in the skies above Rook's Rest caused Corlys to begin turning against Rhaenyra, believing she did not do enough to save his wife. But he was convinced to stay with them when he was named Hand of the Queen. In order to regain momentum in the war, the Blacks began training more dragon riders, searching among the small folk for those with Valyrian blood, and seeing if any of them could be paired with dragons. Several were chosen, including Ulf the White and Hugh Hammer, both of whom eventually betrayed the Blacks at the First Battle of Tumbleton. Becoming suspicious of the Dragon Seeds as they were known, Rhaenyra ordered the arrest of all those new dragon riders they were training. However, Corlys had grown close to Adam of Hull, the supposed bastard son of Laenor Velaryon, even naming Adam heir to Driftmark. But rumor suggested that the boy was actually Corlys' bastard son, who had been kept away from court but was now being legitimized through a story about his deceased son, Laenor. And so he warned his heir of the impending arrest, allowing him to escape aboard his dragon Sea Smoke. Corlys was arrested for his actions, but with so much of the Black faction army and fleet made up of men from House Velaryon, riots broke out in the streets of King's Landing, forcing the Queen to flee the city. After the Sea Snake was freed by Green faction supporters, he joined with Aegon II, even becoming a member of his small council, on the sole condition that they promised not to kill Rhaenyra's son Aegon, and instead marry him to the king's own daughter. Yet despite the ill fortune of the Blacks, which included the death of Rhaenyra on Dragonstone, the war was not over, as the Lord of Winterfell, Cregan Stark, marched with a massive northern army on behalf of the deceased queen, determined to destroy the Greens of the South. With defeat all but certain, Corlys advised Aegon to surrender and join the Night's Watch, but he refused. And so, fearing the wrath of the Northmen warriors headed their way, the king's wine was poisoned, and he died before they reached the city. Although the identity of his assassin was never discovered, Cregan Stark had 22 people arrested as suspects, including Corlys Velaryon. Yet the Lord of Driftmark was spared punishment, as Cregan Stark agreed to a pardon after a negotiation in which he was betrothed and married to Lady Alice Blackwood. Old Lord Corlys then went on to become the most influential of young King Aegon III's regents, until dying in 132 AC, with his long and extraordinary life making him a legendary figure in Westerosi history.